Hey, this is David Atkinson. I play preacher in the show Salvage, which is playing right now at the Hudson Theater. If you'd like to know more about the show, hang around a few minutes and hear us talk about it. It's hard to say when I fell in love with the theater. I always thought if I got famous and ended up on Johnny Carson, I'd have a great story to tell because I originally started because I got in trouble in high school and I had so much trouble piled up with the music teacher. He said, listen, we need extra singers in the musical. And if you'll be in the show, we'll just forget about all the trouble. So I said, great. And then he told me I had to wear tights in the show, which I really hated, but I fell in love with the show then. Um, I did all the shows in high school, um, but I'm from a really working class area. So even as I got into college and was still hanging around the theater, it didn't really occur to me that it was something I could do um, until one of the acting teachers in college pulled me aside and said, hey, you're spending all your time at the theater. Have you ever thought about changing your major? And I said, can you do that? And he said, well, sure you can. And at that point, I was off and running. But so I guess I really fell in love with it in high school, like a lot of people do, I guess. But but then it really took shape later on as I realized there was a whole world out there that was open to me. I guess I really fell in love with acting in Chicago, even though I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting. Um, and I really enjoyed learning about acting, and I got a great education at the University of Georgia. Um, but once I moved to Chicago, and there were a lot of things to figure out on my own, I'll never forget I did a two-hander called Lunch by Stephen Burkoff, and this girl and I performed it in the back of a bookshop. But it was such an intense play, and the audience loved it so much, and it was just she and I. Um, I think that's when I really fell in love with it. When did it go from being a love or an interest to an obsession? You know, I'm not sure if it ever became an obsession for me. I love it. I also love directing. Um, there's a lot of things that I love in the business. And there's other things that I could do if I weren't in the business. I think I'd be plenty happy. I don't know if I'm one of those obsessed actors. I think the theater experience is so unique, apart from other artistic expressions. Um, of course, there's the audience and that immediate feedback you get. Um, Singers get that as well, dancers. But as actors, and I've worked a good bit on camera now, what I like about the theater most is that you get to take the entire journey from A to Z every night. Um, you know, in film, you might start with scene 13, then go to scene 2, and then scene 27. And and that is a skill and a thrill all its own. But being able to tell that whole story from beginning to end every night, um, that's what's most special about the theater to me. My process in creating or becoming a character is not the same with every job, I have to say. Part of my education, I remember teachers who told me if you have one method, you have no method. Um, because I remember one professor in particular who said, what happens that day when you're on the set and the lights are, all the union employees are standing around waiting on you, and your method is failing you on that day. Maybe you're distracted or you have a headache or whatever it is. She said, you better have a plan B and C. Um, so I learned that early on. Um, in Salvage, for instance, the role of preacher is very physical to me. Um, Over the course of the play, preacher drinks a bottle and a half of whiskey. So his physicality changes over 90 minutes as he gets more inebriated. Um, so I felt like I had to solve the physicality first. Other roles, I'll spend a lot of time thinking, the psychological or the intellectual. Some shows that have a lot to do with time and place, classics, or I recently auditioned for a Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. You know, it's a very specific time and place. Those roles, I'll spend some significant time thinking about the decorum of the day and the language and the even the physicality there. So it changes from role to role, I'd say. Michael Donovan, the casting director on this show, has really been a champion of mine. You can hear my voice is a little strange. So I can't work in every musical. But Michael knows me and appreciates me, and he called me in for this show. I really wasn't interested in doing it because I belong to a theater company of my own. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do a smaller theater show, it's going to be at my own theater. But I wanted to go because I love Michael and I appreciate the way he goes to bat for me. And I really thought if I got it, I may just turn it down. Small theaters, significant time and energy commitment in Los Angeles. Then I got a call back, and by the time I had read the entire play and heard the music, I was just hooked. And so at that point, I was really on board with it. I read the play, and the play is very good, but the dramatic action is very dependent on great songs. And when I read it, I said, boy, if these songs aren't fantastic, this play won't work. And the first time I heard the songs, I just said, okay, I'm in. Because they are just some killer, drop dead killer songs. It takes place in a bar room, not a very popular bar room. There's a bartender there and this old guy who sits around all day drinking too much and playing his guitar, singing mostly woe is me songs. He's given up on life. He's hurt people. He's hurt himself. He's convinced himself that he's no good to anybody for anything, and he's given up. This is his life. He comes in there every day. The bar is somewhat famous because a legendary musician died there. So it seems that some young people make a pilgrimage to this bar to see the place. And this young guy comes in and he's amazed that this is the place. Well, he's about to pawn his guitar. He's a young singer-songwriter, like the old guy preacher. But he's about to pawn his guitar because his wife is pregnant. He's got to grow up and get a real job and become a father. The old guy recognizes that he has some talent, and he starts to challenge him not to give up his dreams. And the young guy starts to challenge the old guy that, hey, your life isn't over. You're not worthless. And so the two of these guys, through the songwriting experience they've had, through music and life, they start to try and save each other. So I won't tell you what happens in the end, but that's basically the plot. It's just incredible. Tim Alderson, the writer, he has some background in the music business, and he knew these writers. And these writers are people that, if you say their name in Nashville, people, know who they are. The average person doesn't, because they're primarily writers and not performers. I mean, that's roughly true. Some of them perform more than others, but Tim handpicked these songs from these several writers to fit exactly the play. And like I said before, there's several times in the show where the moment just would not work if the song doesn't just gut you and rip your heart out. And these songs do. There's also some music in the show from Johnny Cash and Hank Williams and Buck Owens, some classic country artists. But most of these songs the audience will have not heard before, and they will be susceptible to having their hearts, trampled by them. Well, we've had a new experience, as the audience may know. And we did the show once before. I did the show once before, right before COVID. It's a 4-character show, and 2 of the actors are new in this iteration. Leonard Earl Howes is our bartender. He owns the bar. His daddy owned the bar. And Leonard, you would know his face. He's on television a lot. He's a big man. And he just brings a ton of energy from the word go. You can't help but be drawn in because he starts, the needle is already on 60. He's the only character in the show that doesn't really sing, but in some ways, he's the moral center of the show. So he drives a lot of it. The other 2 characters are the young man who I said comes in. His name's Harley, played by Sam O'Byrne. And his wife actually comes in and out a couple of times, Nat'l. They're new to the cast, and it's been a lot of fun working them in. They bring different energy than the actors we had before, different voices, just a fresh perspective. Sam is a little more, he's got some abandon about him, like you might imagine a young musician type traveling the country, playing in bars, might have. And Natalie plays the character Destiny. She is the most stable person in the show. Despite having some significant wounds the character has from childhood, and Natalie just comes in and is just amazingly grounded. So the rest of us are bouncing off the walls to her groundedness. It's a really sweet cast. And Damian D. Lewis, our director, I told the cast when we started, people say musical theater is the most collaborative art form. You never meet a more collaborative spirit than Damian. He's very accomplished as an actor and director, knows what he's doing, but he doesn't have so much pride in it that he can't hear ideas and work with people to head a direction that they feel strongly about. I really found that out over time with him. He's an incredible presence in the room. Tim Alderson, our playwright, first of all, he's one of the nicest men you'll ever meet. And he's unassuming. But having lived with this play now for going on 3 years, and it's his first play, it is so deep and just chock full of, I guess I would say, humanity. It seems like every day we're together, we find something new in it. Like I said, it's about big themes like redemption and forgiveness and dreams. But he really understands the human experience too. He's lived an amazing life. He comes from farming. Like I said, he has some experience in the music business too. And he's got an amazing breadth of life experience. But you live with the play a little bit and you realize he really understands human beings and what makes them tick and what their struggle is. And I remember one day I asked him something personal about the play and how it reflected his own personal life. And he said something to the effect that that it was about questions, because after all, isn't that what we're all full of? It's been a really great experience to get to say his words and also to get to know he and his family. Just great people. What do I want the audience to get out of the play? Because it really is a play about something more so than most. It's a play about mistakes and redemption and forgiveness and following your dreams. That might be the thing that I would communicate most to someone. We hear it a lot. Follow your dreams, follow your dreams. And sometimes it's not practical. And it's hard for an artist. I remember as a younger actor, every 5 years I would ask myself, should I quit and become a real person? I'm only 30, I'm only 35, I'm only 38. There's still time for me to get a real job and build a career and a life. And but if I quit now, a big break might happen next week. And it's a real struggle for artists, actors. And this play discusses that in a very practical, grown-up way. It's not just starry-eyed, follow your dreams and everything will be great. The wife is pregnant. There's a baby right there on the way. And the young guy has already been at it for some years without hitting success. This play talks about that. What is that thing about following dreams? I think in the end, it's still hopeful and positive about following dreams, but it doesn't sugarcoat it either. These are real people that struggle. I think what I'm looking for as I'm performing the play is just something authentic. And that could be said of every show, of course, but this show's very different for me. I've got a lot of lines. I'm on stage the whole time. I've got several songs I sing. The guitar playing, which I'm not a great guitar player. I've had to work hard. This guy, like I said before, is getting drunker as the play goes along. There's a lot of emotion, especially at the end. So as an actor, I have found I can't pay attention to what's going on around me as much as I normally can as an actor. I really have to sort of be focused and just react. In another show, I might be aware of the lady in the third row who is taking out her Kleenex or whatever. But in this show, I even realize now in the second iteration of the show, I had to relearn the lines again because I have a new actor I'm playing off of. I didn't even remember the lines because I had learned them in such a reactive way to the other actor. So I think my answer is somewhere in there, that I'm just trying to live in it and feel something authentic. And I know if I do, the character's so well written, the show is so well written and conceived, the audience will get it. I think the reason people should or must come to see our show, you hear this a lot, but Salvage is unlike anything they've seen before. I mean, first of all, it's not a musical. And so it's referred to as a play with music, which we've seen before. But this show is even different again, because it's about songwriters. So the songs come out organically. You know, two songwriters sitting in a room might say, hey, let me show you this thing I've been working on. And then I play a song. So the songs aren't sort of shoehorned into the action in some sort of way that the audience has to forgive. That's a very new thing, or something I've never seen before. And I think the audience will really get a kick out of it. And then on top of that, like I said before, and I wish I had a better phrase, but this show is really about something in a way that is unusual. I've said to the other actors in my experience that characters in this play, more than any play I've ever worked on, they say what they mean. Usually the actors and the audience, they're trying to figure out what the actor really means, or what is the subtext. And there's backstory in this play. It's not that it's shallow, but these are people who are all after something and don't have time to play around. So they say what they mean. And that brings an immediacy to the play that's unusual, I think. How does it feel to come back to the theater after the pandemic year, or a year and a half, whatever, 2 years? It really is an emotional experience. What actors do is so, our tools are our bodies and our voices, and other people's bodies and voices and emotions. And theater people are a special breed. We have to get to know each other quickly. We love fast and hard, and share freely. And that's a very significant thing to miss. So coming back to it, just being in the room with everybody, the first read through was on Zoom, but the first time we got in the room together, I think we all could have just taken a deep breath and just sat down and cried. It's just a beautiful thing to be back in the room, exchanging that energy and moving around the space. And I'll go you one more step. The first night with an audience, in some ways it felt like a brand new experience. At that point we had a significant number of run-throughs with our crew in the audience, but to have even a half house, hear people laugh and respond. And one moment in the show, someone in the audience actually said, "No way," out loud. That kind of thing feels like fresh air. I really feel strongly about this. I'm actually a longtime member of Actors Co-op Theater in Hollywood, which is another similarly sized, similar level of theater. But the theaters like the Hudson, especially in LA, I've lived and worked in several other cities, but it's a different thing in Los Angeles. And LA actors say that sometimes and people roll their eyes, but it really is. In a town that's so focused on the camera, creativity very often for actors lives in the local theaters. And I say local, which could mean your neighborhood, but also a smaller size theater than, let's say, the Amundsen downtown. The chance to explore, take a risk. Very often what we do as actors in LA is we go to the audition and we hold up the bar of soap and we smile and say it's great. And then even if we get the job, you don't come home feeling like you've given something of your talent. You use your skills and your personality, but to really use your heart and your soul, that happens in small theaters in Los Angeles. So that's not only important for the actors and the designers and the creators, but for the audiences as well. It's where they're going to see that actor who in some ways has nothing to lose and everything to gain by just throwing themselves in here. We can, LA small theaters can give voice to causes in a way that larger commercial theaters may not be able to, may not have as much chance to. We can be in touch with our local neighborhoods in a more direct way. We can just do more because the budgets are smaller. They're just vital. And I think sometimes people in LA may not understand that until those theaters aren't there anymore. We've seen it happen a little bit already. And God bless LA small theaters. Our producers really are fantastic theater planners. Raquel and Misha, I don't think I've ever worked in a show that was so intent on taking care of their people and giving the audience the experience they deserve. I just think we've all the way around, from the creatives, the acting, the music, the production, the theater itself, the people at the Hudson have been great. I really think it's worth your while to come see us. Hey everybody, I'm David Atkinson. I play the role of Preacher in Salvage, which is running right now at the Hudson Theater in Hollywood. We sure hope you'll come and see us. You will not be sorry. This show is unlike anything you've seen before. Come see us.